Okay, we're recording. And just for a quick recap, I was talking about my .files repo. This is J Donaldson / .files, and this is actually like a bunch of configuration, but it's also like a clever little like hack of Git itself. And there's a way to install it. I talk about in the documentation here. And my wife is calling me. Let me see if I can call her back. Okay. So anyways, I was just, the name of this session is Hushh University. And I'm just going to talk about like how I have things set up. I'm not expecting you guys to do this like day one. But as you reach further and further into all this stuff that I've got set up for myself, you'll learn more and more about like how to be a better programmer, and terminal jockey and like debugger, like you name it. Like it's where all your power comes from as an engineer, believe it or not. It's not how well you code. So this is a pretty comprehensive little set of like configurations. It's a little bit biased towards my preferences, but my preferences are always going to be speed. It's just like, so like that's the number one thing with me. So none of this adds any unnecessary latency. And so I was talking about the base Mac Z shell environment, which is also quite fast, and I think a slight improvement over Bash, which is an older one that's been around forever. And then I was talking about how I'm using this system called Zim to basically spice up the terminal, make it more usable. People always say like, oh, this is, this isn't really helping you, or this is just extraneous stuff. But like once you kind of get a grip over like, all the things that the terminal can do for you, you're like, I need a good terminal toolkit. So Zim is my choice for that. I try to install as much as I can with Zim. And then I talked a little bit about how there's, everyone has it's probably the most important file in your whole system is this ZSHRC file, which is the configuration for your shell. And that everyone should kind of know where it is and know how to edit it using Nano or using NeoVim. Because there's a lot of stuff that the terminal can do, but only if you tell it to do it. So most of this configuration looks like a lot of stuff I wrote, but this is actually what Zim generated for me, and it did so many things that that were great. I was like, this is all awesome, and it's better than what I could come up with on my own. So I use it, and then there's a separate Zim RC file here as well that goes into the modules and kind of like what they do. And I describe this as sort of like the app store for the terminal. So there's a lot of useful things in here that make working with the terminal a pleasure. And I think like there's a couple other files in here that might be useful to go into, but in general, I just wanted to also call out that like with these RC files, let me see if I can find some more. There's one, yarn RC. I could check that one in, but basically those are like remote like connection files, and basically those trigger every time you terminal into something, and they can do a bunch of really useful things for you. So they're good to kind of like read up on and make sure that you've got it set the way you want. But I want to go back to so the RC files are, for the ZSHRC is really your most critical file. It configures that environment. Zim is sort of the package manager for the stuff that just runs in your terminal. It's great, and then you can install all of that from my .files repo. And then I wanted to talk more about speed and how I have this set up. You'll notice that I'm using something called Kitty. I think I mentioned this before. So here's what we got. It's a cross-platform, feature-rich, GPU-based terminal. So one of the crazy things about terminal is that like they're sort of so old that like Apple really hasn't done much with theirs in forever. And meanwhile, like the screen sizes can be huge. And the amount of stuff that the terminal can do on the screen sometimes is like, the terminal can't draw it fast enough, which is kind of ridiculous, right? Because this laptop is like screaming fast. So this guy created this terminal emulator that basically can use all the hardware you have on your computer to literally show the text as fast as possible to you. So once again, it's a big bias I've got towards speed. I want to see stuff. I don't want to, I want to kind of move with the power of my thought wherever is possible. And so this is another program that I like that helps me do that. It itself has a bunch of, let me see if I can figure if it's, yeah, there it is. So there's configuration for this. And this has a lot of different settings for, just like you can open URLs with a click, straight off the terminal. I'm trying to find the one where it talks about the color. Okay, yeah, I think these are it. Yeah. One of the other things that I do is I don't like the white terminal background, and I don't like the basic terminal background. I think like you can do better. Like and honestly, controlling your terminal colors is kind of silly, but it's pretty satisfying. It kind of means that like there's a lot of things it can do for you to like colorize. So I'll open something up here. Like if I wanted to just show the files, the dark blue there is the folders, the light blue, and then the white are the files. So I immediately see that, right? It gave me some extra information just with color. And usually the base terminal kind of does that for you, but like I don't know, like it just could be way better. And so with this, it's basically giving me this this color scheme. I take really good care of my eyes. You guys should as well. Like have screen protectors, like in the sense of like I think if you when you have a Mac laptop, you can automatically kind of adjust the amount of blue light it sends out at night. Because if you have too much of that, it'll keep you up all night and mess with your head a little bit. So like I have the screen color gradually shift to red in the evenings. And then there's all kinds of different like theory on color, like what's a good color to look at. Like there's some that's very like intense, or like I think black on white is really hard to read all day. I wouldn't want to do it. So there's this guy who did actually a lot of interesting work on this, named Ethan. I think let me make sure I get his name right here. Ethan Schoonover. But he basically did a lot of theory on just sort of what made sense for accent colors, what made sense for kind of like pleasing like shades to look at that were still distinguishable, and if there's any way to like get some extra benefit out of the color scheme, he tried to do it. And I actually think what he landed on is beautiful. Like I love these colors. And you can kind of see the palette he used, and it might be a little bit like extra, but like I think since this is my personal stuff, I don't mind it being a little bit extra if I can wrap my head around it, and if I'm I'm buying what he's saying, then I'll use it. So he's got the I think it's if you just, he's now so popular you can just say colorized kitty theme. And look, someone even made a repo of kitty themes. So this might be even better to use than what I did. I kind of hard set the colors here based on that color palette that I found. But yeah, this will let you change your themes. I might mess around with this later, but I think it's worth messing around. It's a little bit of self-expression that you can have on your programming environment. And you know, like I think the thing is that like, you know, software will change on you, operating systems will change on you. But the terminal, like you can take it anywhere. So like dressing it up nice is kind of weird, but it's also like, I think it's worth it because like some of the stuff in here is like 20 years old at this point. And it's been built up over time. And I've been able to keep it, you know, like sometimes what'll happen is like a programming language will go out of fashion and then an editor will go out of fashion and all this stuff will go away and you'll be like, shoot, like I spent all this time, like, you know, figuring all that stuff out so I could be a ninja at it. And then like it vanished. And so that's happened actually a couple times to me. And I learned my lesson. So like, this is, you know, go as deep as you can into the, into your system and really make that your own. And you'll have a much easier time of developing. So going deep, like Kitty is sort of like, Kitty then is just sort of the my terminal of choice. It's extremely fast. And then when you install it, you can set it as a default like terminal. And the other thing you'll notice is that like I'll flip my hands around a lot. Like one of the most important commands on the desktop here is this Alt space. See how that pulls it up immediately? One of the cringiest things I see for an engineer to do is like to hunt through the application menu to launch a program. If you do that, it's so embarrassing to me because like it's just so much better just to launch Spotlight search and just to say, you know, give me my program, you know, like just type in the program. And so that motion, that this option space, I use this in my terminal as well. I'm like, you know, give me the whatever the Z shell configuration for, you know, what will, you know, just type in some words. And what it's doing is it's searching across, you know, the working directory for this file. So I don't like, I think another big thing in terminals, like you need to deal with is don't like think in terms of operating system idioms of like going into folders or, you know, accessing something through the start button. You just, yeah, Omkar, I hope everything's okay. Do you want me to stop recording?
No, no, just I
Okay,
was just saying like,
okay. You said you're totally got off my mind. I didn't know what that meant. Um, anyways, we are recording this, and I'll share the video later. I wanted to show just sort of like all the gear shifts that happen when you become like a, you know, you get used to the terminal and you get used to sort of like working with your system optimally, and it looks and it feels very different because, you know, I'm not using a a uh, GUI. You know, I'm not like clicking through the Finder menu. So this search function is actually not part of uh, Kitty, but it is part of NeoVim. So that's what I'm using to edit everything. I don't think Nano has anything like that, but there's a if you install my main if you install my plugins, you'll get something called Fuzzy Find. It's a command line fuzzy finder. So they let me see. Okay, there we go. Okay, yeah, check it out. Okay, so it's a interactive program, and you just hit it, and like if you wanted to just search for anything. and it's going to look through folders and files. You can see how it's like scanning everything in real time. So it's a powerful little like search engine for your whole working directory, and you can launch it from anywhere. So pretty useful. And then the NeoVim basically wraps it. And it works even, you see how it's like, does that same counter as it's searching. So it's kind of like having like a little miniature Google at your beck and call for everything. And extremely helpful. And like most editors will have that built in. In fact, that's like their main feature, is they'll help you search. But like programs like Fuzzy Find are basically, look, you don't need an editor for that feature. Like you can just have the search and integrate it however you want, into the rest of your workflow. So it breaks things down to little parts, and then you can recombine them in fun new ways. And so search is a powerful one. So I've got it kind of coming in through NeoVim and a bunch of other programs. Let's see. So that's just sort of like, this is just sort of like, me giving the terminal love, and then it gives it back to you a little bit. And it just sort of makes your daily process just more enjoyable, just with bouncing around and, dealing with the different problems that can come up. Let me see what else I could talk about here. So we talked a little bit about Kitty and Zim. So there's another program here. I'm just going to mention it, and I'm not expecting you guys all to do all this, but I want you to like just stick this in the back of your mind. TMUX is a terminal multiplexer. So one of the things I can do is, if I have something running long in the terminal here. So like this program here is just called Yes, and it will do is like just keep entering in the character Y, and there's a reason for it. It's basically like this is it's another piece that makes sense when you understand what terminals are doing. So terminals, if you run a program from the terminal, sometimes it will install something and it will say, do you want to continue, yes or no? But of course you do. like what you wrote, you just made the command to do that. So like what you do is like you run that program, and then you run that yes command, you pipe it into that program instead of typing into it. And what that does is it just sends it that yes signal as often as necessary, to just the defaults. So like this is really useful just for automating like certain installations. But it will keep going, and it will actually block. So like right now I don't like it's running and generating output, and like if I interrupt it, I don't want to interrupt yes. Let's just say for some reason I don't want to do that. TMUX lets me open up another session within the same term. Like it creates sort of like a host, and then creates all these different sessions for me. And so like I'm running 2 sessions now. One is still running that yes program forever, but now this is doing its own thing. And it's just kind of nice. And I'm going to do something crazy here. I'm going to close the terminal. Now, if you close the terminal in the base terminal, what happens? Does anyone know? That's right. It'll kill everything you've got running. So it's like, and it's stressful. Like I don't want to, like I want to close stuff. I don't want to worry about like closing a program that I have running. Like, so, but I can do that here, and then I can bring it back. And because I was using TMUX, it held on to that root connection and still has my sessions. Like I wasn't running I wasn't running like TMUX from my terminal. It was running on its own, and then I'm just connecting into it. So it's like yeah, no worries. It's sort of like a session manager for your terminal, so you can get in there and like get a couple things running. Like imagine if you were like, yeah, I want to do a search of this or build that or like download this. You can kind of set those up in different sessions, and then they can run in the background. And then like you just don't have to worry about that exit button on the terminal causing any problems. If you want to kill everything, you can use this. I always use this command. It's just called kill all. And if I do this, it'll nuke me out of that tmux program that was operating as that host, and now I'm in sort of a raw shell. So now if I run any of the normal stuff, if I exit it back, it's gone. Like I lost that, that program. It died. So it's sort of like tmux is a safety net for that. And you can just use it as a safety net for that. I think is kind of helpful. I think it's, once again, this is something you can kind of safely put further back in your to-do list of things to check out. It's sort of it's more of a fringe helper, but once again, it helps you use your terminal better, just hands down. And it also is very fast. So like those are two pretty nice things to have. And then what else do I got in here? I already talked about durenv, and I'm trying to, there was a couple others, but like durenv we're using as a way of quickly changing configuration for projects. So I've got it set up right now on this Hushh 5 catalog. So I talked about, and this is mainly for Kirti, Devesh, and Isha. I think I ran over this with Omkar and Rohan already, but we talked about how we're using durenv. And so one of the things durenv will do, so if we go to Hushh 5 catalog, pay attention to that letter, this phrase right here is my Python environment. And so pay attention to what happens. You see durenv some output, and it's like, oh, I'm loading a different Python environment. And notice how this has changed now, because I've got a Zim configuration that tells me the Python environment of whatever folder I'm in. So it's like, it's perfect because I'll be moving around. There's going to be different environments, and I kind of want to know what which Python commands I'm working with at a given time. So you can tell that like Python's been changed by looking at which I described earlier. So you can see where it's linked. And then you can go, now if you go back, kind of step back out of this directory, durenv will kick off in reverse. And there, we're back in base. And if we look at Python, it's different. So it's like by stepping through that folder, we step through a portal. And everything's kind of configured for us when we're working there, which is just great. Go ahead, Devesh.
Is it similar to PyEnv by any chance? The durenv?
Yeah, it is. So those are conda environments. There's a series of Python virtual like environment managers for Python. I think there's like 6. And some of them have better features than others, hands down. We're using conda because conda is well configured for machine learning libraries. So it's basically tries to stay as up to date across this huge ecosystem of PyTorch, and whatever is going on requires very custom, requires like GPU driver, compatibility and all this other stuff. And if you're staying on the cutting edge of stuff, like you just don't know if it's going to work. Like something might break, and you know, unless you can fix it, unless you understand sort of this, you know, where some of this GPU configuration code was going wrong, like you're stuck. So Conda takes care of all that for us. They are basically an open source. They definitely like do consultation, but they also offer this that environment manager for free. And so like this is the definitely something you guys should be aware of. This is like the big daddy of like Python right now. And so I guess like with Conda, let me show you what happens. So I can do this. I can do Conda activate Hushh vibe catalog, and it loads that, right? And I can deactivate. So those are the, if you, that PineVim or PineV or whatever it is, Devesh, does something very similar, have very similar commands. So the cool thing is with Durand, it actually can work with either one. So we can go into here, and I just wanted to show, these are super simple to set up. It's nvarc, and you can see that I have this set up that like this is a minor detail. This just lets Conda make sure that Conda is activated here, and then you can see that it's activating the specific environment, which is environment I set up for the vibe catalog. So those two commands, like you and with Durand, you can have it automatically, you know, the Conda environment to whatever folder you wanted to use. Omkar and Rohan, I'm guessing that's probably the most valuable to you guys, right?
Yeah, I am. Oh, sorry. So I am using this Conda for the different environment. I set up 2-3 environments. So I was just configuring how you set up that Denon file so that I can automatically activate the Conda environment while entering that folder.
Yeah, I'll show you here. So this is actually, you can see this in the code here that gets checked in. So here it is. And then you just change this name to be whatever, you know, you want it to be. And then the final thing you do is edit that your Z shell RC file. If you go all the way to the bottom, you see this Durand directory. And so like, you know, that's kind of the nice thing. It's just sort of like it does something nice for you within the terminal. That honestly is kind of a pain. You know, I think this just makes sense. Everything's configured off of your working directory anyways. So add that there. And you can kind of see like how I set this up. Most of this, I would say 99% of the content of my Z shell script here is from Zim. But I do have, if I'm making little changes and I don't want to put them in the main file because I might overwrite the main file, I put them in the side file. And so this is like just some extra stuff that helpers I like to do in terms of configuration. And then this is some of the tmux stuff that I do. So there's this, you know, I mentioned tmux, how it's sort of like, you know, handling the connections into terminals for me, and I can exit my terminal and it saves the state. So I did this little hack where it's basically the first thing it does when I open a terminal is look for a tmux session to reuse. And so these are the steps that do it. It's just you know, just some code that you enter into your Z shell configuration. And I mean, I understand the steps, but it's like I don't know much more about it outside other than just to copy paste that. These all sound reasonable. So all that kind of folds and expands within your Z shell configuration. And so direnv is probably the simplest. I think it's the best bang for the buck thing you can do. It's a simple edit to your Z shell, and then just use those .envrc files to set the configuration. And you can kind of see what I'm doing here with make files. You know, they're using Conda as well, so like it's super easy to you know, just set this up with a make file that like goes ahead and installs everything, reloads direnv if necessary. So I'm trying to help you guys kind of tame the beast here a little bit with make files, but like I think offering a make file is being a good citizen. You know, you're saying like, look, I'm trying to help you configure this and do the right thing. I'm, you know, a README obviously is another one. But whenever you guys do projects, like, you know, if they're half baked, you know, don't bother. But like if you're expecting someone else to use it, you know, do some nice things to help that someone else work with it and not mess up their own stuff. And so virtual environments, make files, all these different things kind of help someone else pick up right where you left off, rather than like having to go back and forth saying like, how did you have Python configured? Or I'm having an issue with this. You say, nope, just use that. If that doesn't work, then, you know, it's a bigger problem. So anyways, I think like in terms of what I'm trying to do with like the Python culture, at least, is to give projects that have a little more help to get people started. And so one of those is this .envrc file. And then one of these is a make file. And it makes the you know, builds the Python library, cleans it, tests it, publishes documentation. So Devesh, like you can see, here's where I'm stacking the Cordo commands. And it's sort of like it's a nice like command line trigger for all that. And then you can trigger it from the make file, or in this workflow file, you can run it as a command directly from a GitHub action. So like you can automate all this stuff too. Like all of the stuff you want to do with a repo, you know, break this out into a GitHub action, make a make alias for it and ship it. You know, you can just do it, which I think is awesome. And then, so like this creates a pip wheel. We could automatically like publish this to PyPy, like if we did something open source, and then everyone could use it, and we would look great. You know, our documentation's awesome. You know, we have multiple environments that we can track and manage and maintain. If we have questions, we can route people to Discord rather, and you know, talk about it there. But like as people start using our stuff, they'll want to talk to us about it, and so like we kind of need to put out the front door mat. And eventually we'll need to have people in the you know, like have people in Discord as well, because they'll be referencing stuff that they see. So Makefile is sort of like a big front doormat for the project. And then this GitHub workflows file is basically like the automation secret sauce that we have, that I mean everyone has, but it's just like this is us using everything GitHub, you know, lets us do. I'm kind of looping around at this point now, and orientating it more towards Omkar and Rohan. Does anyone else have any other questions? Go ahead, Devesh. Yeah, I was expecting like kind of the new people maybe to have more.
Hey, for the Zim file, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does it directly add to the ZSH RC configuration, or is that a Zim RC configuration? Because I downloaded Zim right now and I've set it up, but I'm not able to see the updated configuration in the file.
Yeah, you'll need to. So Zim has its own configuration. It's a good question. So if we go back, there's this Z shell configuration, and you'll see that most of this is, you read this, this is the configuration added by Zim install. So it's all of this, I think, till, man, I don't even know. Yeah, it's this. I only added these 4 lines
Because
now.
my ZSH RC is not reflecting that, but I'm having the theme of the Zim, like the autocomplete and stuff. So I'm kind of confused.
But you've got it installed correctly and configured correctly?
Can you just share screen if that's possible?
You can.
So, see my screen?
Yeah, there we go.
So I'm just gonna do this. So if I do, oh, it's okay. Never mind. This is the one you were saying, right? The Zoom stuff.
Yeah. So that's its own kind of, that's its own stuff. And then, so it basically takes over your ZSHRC file with a bunch of stuff. And you just let it do that. And then, yeah, there you go. Hey.
How do I set up the fancy stuff which you have, like the stuff on top? With,
Let's see here.
oh, I gotta add this to my.
Oh yeah, you might want to edit that. And then you'll want to reload it. You know how to, you can source that. You can source that file.
Do I just go here and just into that? Oh, I think I have that. Is that all? I mean, it should work now, right? If I do everything.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm just gonna do quick. I don't think it's gonna work. Yeah, it does not.
Okay.
But if I run this export command, then do this, it works.
Yeah, maybe what I've got is I think I might have a few places where I have my name hard coded into the configuration. You might check that. Let me look through mine real quick. Huh. No, I don't see anything in here that would have messed you up. What's that thing that you had at the top of your screen?
Sorry?
What was the error you had at the top of your screen?
It says command F. That's not an error. Oh wait. I was trying to download some themes. So it's probably why. Not valid in this context. Huh. It's something to do with Qualder.
I saw something that looked like .NET. I didn't recognize it.
Uh-huh. Do
And
you want me to share screen again?
yeah, I'm trying to think like where else it could be getting those commands from.
Oh, I think it's this. Why doesn't command delete work here?
Why does what now?
Like command delete, like I mean, if I want to delete an entire line,
Uh-huh.
how do I do that on the terminal?
Oh yeah. Well, so you're on Vim here?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, stop. So if you want to delete all of that,
Just this line.
yeah, hit go to the line you want and then hit DD. Delete those backspace. Hit escape.
Okay.
DD.
Ah, okay.
There.
Yeah.
Now you're using Vim. Vim has those two modes, right? Like, so that was a good one. You just took a baby step there. And then yeah, like you're in typing mode, but most of the time you're in editing mode, which is like just nuking lines and moving them around, skipping around through the text. You'll be way more nimble in Vim than you will with a mouse and keyboard.
That makes so much sense. But why is Elvin working when I do this export here, but when I add that to the ZSH config, it's not registering that. Can I like do an echo export? Do I just do echo and then the whole export thing?
What are you trying to do here?
I want to make the Elvin command work. So if I quit this session and I go back to Kitty, and it works now.
Yeah, but now you're missing NeoVim.
Okay, that's fine. I figured that out.
Yeah, I think you're missing a couple things in there for like also setting homebrew. It's missing some homebrew settings there for some reason.
Yeah, the brew isn't working now either when I quit the command.
Yeah,
I think I have to. Yeah, I have to add the parts to the ZSH config file, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look into that.
Yeah, if you guys use all this, you'll see that I'm starting to use this in patterns and using some patterns here for referencing API keys. So that's nice because it's only showing half of it. But like you know how like it's a bad idea to put credentials like in your code. So what I do is I never check in the code that has the API keys. And so to do that, I have a file that has the API keys that kind of configure. You know, there's one for OpenAI as well. But then you'll notice that let me go back down here to dot files. One more time. Okay, so is not that one. Well, basically, I should have something in here that will forcibly ignore certain files. Like you should never check that API key file in. So actually, let me see if I can fix that. I did. Yeah, so that's not good. So what I want to do is check this here real quick. Yeah. I had myself in a little safety net there. I had a change from somewhere. So this is another good example. So dot files I had some changes, and then it caused a conflict. And then so I tried to push, and then it's got some upstream changes that I need to integrate, and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I'll get those because I always get those. Because I made a change from another machine. And so if you try to pull and get those changes, it says, oh, you've got unstaged changes. And you're like, yeah, that's the stuff I wanted to check in. Like, so what you do is stash it. This is another get command. Were you guys aware of this? Was anyone aware of this? Give me a thumbs up. Anybody? Okay. This is good. This is good things to know. Stash is the same as get stash. So I just want to show this. Oops. If you do get status, you say like, oh, there's all these different like this untracked files, and I've been working on those. But if we do, like, I'm just going to touch. What would be a good one to mess with here? You do. Okay. So that modified it. But if I do get stash, it didn't touch. Notice that it didn't touch any of the untracked files. It left those alone. But that to do now is no longer there. In fact, it's gone. Whatever I had done to modify that. But really, it's not lost. Stash is sort of like reset, except it like basically takes that change and shifts it onto a stack. And you can do get stash pop, get that latest change. And that was the to do. And so now we see that's been modified again. So here, I'm going to use all that information here to resolve that that problematic pull. Dot file status. I'm going to try to pull. It'll say you've got unstaged changes. I'm going to stash them. Try it again. Got it. See what I did? I just sort of like moved everything off the table, let it update itself, moved it back. You know, it's kind of like sorry. You missed that dramatic reenactment, but like your workspace and stash is basically like, you know, it's in your workspace. It's like on your desk and you're messing with it. It's got your edits. It's all marked up, you know, and Git knows about it. But then you're like, oh, here's some updates. And I want those updates, but I don't want to, like, I've got this hot mess on my desk. Git stash is basically like you take it and you put it in a box, like just aside, one step. Then you can bring all the stuff, merge it back in. and then git stash pop pops it back on top. So it's a good way of like, as we're working, working together, you can get someone's upstream changes and feel confident about like it not affecting like what you're working on. But the other, basically part 2 to that, to get stash pop and all that, is also like check in, make a lot of small little check-ins, of code. Like you shouldn't have changes on your disk for more than a few hours. Like they should get committed and they should get pushed to a branch. And it's just a good habit to get into, so that you don't lose work, like so that something doesn't happen to your computer or you lose it and you get up and running. Hey, thanks, Kirthi. Oh, yeah, she's gone. But okay, that's awesome. I might have to let you guys go here. And I'm sorry, Omkar, Omkar and I actually have a meeting here, so I might let you guys go. And Omkar, I apologize for going late here. I'm hoping this was still helpful to you.
Yeah, it was. No problem.
Okay. I'm going to stop recording then.